What's good? I'm back with another entry into my diary of being a new DM. Now, this last week, we didn't really have a lot happen in our session, and there really isn't a whole lot to cover in our story to catch you guys up. But I did think about some things over this past week, and there are other works that have inspired me to think of things in my own campaign and how I'm running things. I will catch you up very quickly on what happened, though. In our last session, our players are looking still for the daughter of Luvash, who was one of the brothers who leads the Vistani camp outside of Valaki. And I'm playing this part a little differently than maybe what you're used to. If you guys remember, in a previous session of ours, our players ran into Granny, the night hag that was cooking children into her pies, and they got rid of her sisters, the other witches in her coven, but Granny, alas, got away. Well, what happened was, in our last session, they actually had a few of the Vistani guards type people from the Vistani camp strike out with them to help find Luvash's daughter. They went up towards Lake Zarovich. Long story short, they fought some like lake monsters, and they found like a cut piece of ribbon that was from her clothing. And then our tiefling warlock sent his imp along the coast, which then discovered a children's shoe in the sand. And then from there, the imp had reported that there seemed to be some smoke rising from the southeast into the forest a little bit. So our party goes and investigates that, and it happens to be Granny yet again. Long story short, they have a big fight there with some werewolves that had come out of the woods, and then there were two more witches with Granny. They had popped out first to try to take care of the crew, and then when the crew was not falling, Granny comes out of the little hut in the woods with basically a dagger to Arabelle's throat, and is like, "You let me go, I'll let her go. You won't see me in these parts again." You know, like a standoff type situation. Long story short with that, they kind of took the deal. Granny cuts off a piece of Arabelle's hair and then immediately fades into non-existence there and disappears. So that's what happened. There's really not a whole lot to discuss with that. Really, the only thing that happened since the last session was that fight there. But there were a couple things that I've been thinking about. I was actually recently watching a expose on the Soulsborne series and level design with those. It was pretty interesting. It got me thinking about my level design and exposition with Curse of Strahd specifically. One of the things that a lot of video games and the Soulsborne series, not the least, they set up this constant anxiety and despair, right? But then have these perfectly juxtaposition bonfires, or lampposts, if you will, that offer this overwhelming sense of relief that you have hit basically a checkpoint. I've still really been trying to narrate a good, weighty setting with Curse of Strahd, but at the same time, I think it's been lacking in that despair, because so far, again, and I've talked about this in previous videos, our heroes have been able to handle just about everything that's thrown at them. And so far, if anything is thrown at them that either A, doesn't seem to make sense, or they don't have an immediate answer to just wipe the floor with the puzzle or the enemy, it's kind of this like, what the hell? That's not really how that's supposed to be. That's supposed to be the pervasive feeling, at least in Curse of Strahd, of every moment is supposed to kind of be this on edge. Okay, even though we're in a safe place, maybe this isn't so safe, and taking a step out the door is dangerous, and we should be careful. Yes, this is a game where you are the hero, but that doesn't mean you wipe the floor with every situation, and that doesn't mean you're going to have an answer to every single riddle that comes your way. So that's just something that I was thinking about, especially watching videos on level design and stuff from video games. There's danger there, you know, especially like I said in the Soulsborne games, there's despair there, and the weight is tangible. So that's one thing I was thinking of, and trying to think of how I could possibly start flipping things to that type of perspective. Another thing that I was thinking of, a little more simple in thought process, but I was thinking about this as well, and it does also tie in with how video games are played and stuff. Not every fight in Dungeons and Dragons has to be a big challenge. And that may seem to kind of contradict my previous thought that I had, but there have been times where I'm like, okay, random encounter, well, they're level 6 heroes right now, and if I roll on the random encounter sheet and they come across a couple zombies, well, zombies AC is 8, and their hit points are like 20 or 25. I mean, that's like one Eldritch Blast from our all-powerful Tiefling Warlock, and the encounter is done, right? And I was thinking about that, and I was like, that's okay, though, because you can't always have this big boss-type fight every time they have an encounter, because that takes away from the flavor of the setting, in my mind. Now that I've thought about it, I feel like even though they may be able to wipe the floor with this little encounter, that can help with my first point of adding weight and despair to the setting of like nothing is safe. Even though they're able to handle this pack of wolves or whatever, it still gives that feeling that there are things in this environment that are pretty much always out to get you, whether you can handle it or not. And then, of course, there's variety there. You can add a flock of vampire spawn or whatever you call them. You know, there's tons of things in that world that are very much dangerous, but they don't always have to be the correct challenge rating to give them this in-depth, complex battle challenge thing, just to add flavor to the setting. So those are the things that I was thinking about. You know, they're things that I'll be able to work into our future sessions and stuff. We still have tons of ground to cover here in Curse of Strahd. Out of Madame Eva's Taroka reading, they've only resolved one point of that so far. And if our players and you guys remember, there are 5 cards that are flipped in the Taroka reading. So we do still have quite a bit of ground to cover, but they've come a long way and they're making leaps and bounds. So I'm still looking forward to what they're going to be encountering in the future. Anyways, that's all I got for this week's diary entry. Please like, follow, whatever all that stuff is for YouTube. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.